Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Are you ready for the Word?
Yes, sir.
Turn to Genesis 6.
Yes, sir.
Genesis 6, look in verse 1. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Spent some time yesterday afternoon preparing for today, and then after doing so, I was getting ready for bed, and just before I dozed off, this thought came to me. This is rivalry week. You're aware of that, right? Alabama, Auburn, Georgia versus Georgia Tech, Texas versus Texas Tech, and all the other rivalries that are going on. And a lot of people take those rivalries very seriously. Well, did you know that the kingdom of heaven has a rival? And that Yahweh expects His children to take that rivalry very seriously. In Genesis 6, we're told that some of the angels who followed Lucifer in his revolt against Yahweh committed the heinous act of mingling their DNA with the DNA of the daughters of men. And the result was the Genesis, the beginning of a hybrid race of beings. We read about this hybrid race of beings all through Torah. And most of us never noticed it because we were conditioned to not see it. But it's there. When we read our Bibles, we read of Anak and Anakim, who were so tall and so mighty that all giants were measured by them. When we read our Bible, we read about the Emims. We read about the Zamzumims, who we are told were as tall and mighty as the Anakim. We read about soldiers so big that average men looked like grasshoppers in their sight. So big their armor weighed more than the average man would weigh. We read of Og of Bashan, Goliath of Gath. We read of Goliath's brothers. We read of walls that were so big that it was said they seemed to reach even into heaven. And we read about abilities that are nothing short of being supernatural. You know, when we read the story of the Exodus, you know, when Moses came in and he and Aaron and they threw the rod down, what happened? The rod became a serpent. But what did Pharaoh's magicians also do? They came in, not just one, but they came in and they threw their rods down, and their rods also became serpents. And then Moses, you know, they struck the river with the rod and it became blood. What did the magicians do? Same thing. They struck water also and it became blood. So we see them repeating several of the acts that what Moses was doing was supernatural. He was doing it by the aid of Yahweh. And what these magicians were doing was also supernatural. They weren't tricking anybody. What they did, they also did supernaturally. But they were drawing on a power outside of Yahweh. Now, they could not do everything that Moses did. Their limit to power was revealed quickly when Moses struck the dust and it became lice. They could not do that. When the swarm of flies were sent, they could not do that. When the boils were put upon man and beast, the magicians of Egypt got the boils. They couldn't produce them, but they got them. So their power was limited, but nonetheless, it is shown to us that they were able to tap into a supernatural power that was outside of Yahweh Himself. They had learned on some level how to cooperate with a power beyond themselves. Not only have we been conditioned to not see the evidence of this incursion of fallen angels who came into the earth to corrupt, contaminate, and destroy Yahweh's creation, but we have, I think, by not seeing it, been unaware of the battle that rages between man and the spirits of these hybrid beings. There were hybrids created before the flood, and Genesis 6 says hybrids were created after the flood. Here are three things we should know about these hybrids. Many of them, number one, had supernatural size. Therefore, they began to dominate men as tyrants. The second thing we need to know about these hybrids is many of them had supernatural powers. They could do things that a normal natural man could not do. And for that reason, many of them began to be looked at as if they were gods. And they began to be worshiped as gods. Greek mythology. Okay. Greek mythology is based upon these actual characters that lived who had supernatural powers. So the three things we need to know about these hybrids is, number one, they had supernatural size. Number two, they had supernatural power. And number three, the bodies of these hybrid beings died. But the spirits did not. And these spirits departed their bodies, but they never left the earth. In the book of Enoch, we read this. I'm going to read from the book of Enoch. The fallen angels who committed the heinous act of coming unto the daughters of men and creating these hybrid beings in the earth, when they saw their offspring dying, they pleaded with Enoch for the spirits of these offspring. And here is what Yahweh told Enoch to tell them. In Enoch 15:4, though you were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you defiled yourselves with the blood of women, you've begotten children with the blood of flesh, and as the children of men, you have lusted after flesh and blood like those who die and are killed. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits on the earth, and shall live on the earth. Evil spirits have come out of their bodies because they are born from men and from the holy watchers. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called, spirits of the evil ones. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, war, and cause trouble on the earth. They take no food, but do hunger and thirst. They cause offenses, but they are not observed. You get that? They're causing all this trouble, but you can't see them with your eye. And these spirits rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them in the days of the slaughter and destruction. So the book of Enoch lets us know that the spirits of the hybrid race that was created in Genesis 6, the spirits of these hybrid beings roam the earth as evil spirits oppressing mankind. So to clarify, these hybrid beings, some of them had supernatural size, some of them had supernatural power, and their spirits are still in the earth, afflicting, oppressing, destroying, and attacking men. The kingdom of heaven has a rival, and Yahweh expects us to take that rivalry seriously. So what I want to do this morning is two things. One, look at the evidence that the hybrids were here. And two, look at the evidence that the spirits of the hybrids are still here. So, we're going to start with a little bit of a slideshow. But I just want to go through it and look at some things that I wonder how you would explain apart from some hybrid beings being here. We have the pyramids and the Sphinx. These things are massive in size. Just take the size of those things into consideration. Look at the people at the bottom there. These things are massive. This is in Lebanon, the temple of Baalbek. Here is a stone, I think they call it the pregnant stone. This thing is estimated to weigh somewhere, it's estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons. How much is 1,000 tons? Here is another stone. The largest of these stones here is said to weigh 1,650 tons. Reason they're still sitting there is we have no clue how to move them. Again, this is in Lebanon, but I want you to look at the size of these stones that are up here compared to this man who is standing here. Now consider this building that's being built. Do you understand why the 10 spies came back and said, they have walls that reach to heaven. There's no way we can penetrate and even get into that city or into their cities. You understand? They're seeing things like this. Now, how do you pick up a stone this size that probably weighs, I think I read somewhere that this stone's estimated to weigh 800 tons. How do you quarry that from miles away, bring it to this location, lift it up, and set it in place? Again, notice the size. Here's the people. Notice the size of this temple that was built. These structures are found all over the earth, all over the world. There's one gives you an idea of the size of these things. I think they're called trilitons. There's a massive column that has collapsed. Here's what I want you to see is, look at the way these stones are cut or formed. I know they have more proper names for them. I think they call this cyclopean masonry. It looks like marshmallows to me that people just kind of mush together. It's almost as if the stones could be made soft, and they put them together with such precision. It is mind-boggling. Look at that. And look at the size of them. The way these things are formed and connected together. These stones are found in Canada. There's some found in Greece. Again, look at the way the stones are shaped and formed and put together. Now explain to me how that was done. Take a rock and just bend it. These are found on Easter Island. There are over 900 of these on the island. Up to 33 feet tall, weighing over 90 tons. How were they transported? How were they put in place? And we're just seeing what's above the ground. There's a stone in Russia. I'm not familiar with the island of Awad. Does anybody know Awad? Is that the way it's pronounced? I assume. But a wall once surrounded that entire island. 90-ton pink granite stones stood up, placed on the side of a mountain. But they say they were quarried on another mountain, transported off of that mountain across a river up this mountain and put in place. 90-ton granite stones. There's some footprints that have been found. Anybody know where that is? Say again?
Is that the one in Ohio?
That's the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio. You can see the tail here, and it works its way across that mountain. Here, you see the mouth of the serpent, and it looks like it's swallowing an egg. You know, outside of Tuscaloosa, a place called Moundville, there's all kinds of these man-made earth mounds. This one is in Moundville. This one is in Etowah County, Georgia. Now, what's interesting about these things is I think I read somewhere where there's over 10,000 of these things scattered throughout North America. And archaeologists tells us that Indians built them. You ever heard that? You ever heard about how Indians built them? Interesting thing is, the Indians say, we didn't build them. They were already here. But archaeologists still want us to believe Indians built them. They say they're already here. Now, what's intriguing is it seems like every time somebody purposefully or accidentally digs into one of them, what they begin to uncover are the skeletons of giants. This one here in Wisconsin, of a man of gigantic size, head to foot over 9 feet. And then there's all kind of articles in the late 1800s and early 1900s where people began archaeological digs in North America. And here in Austin, Texas, they found an 18-foot tall skeleton. Buffalo Bill, in his autobiography, tells this story. He says that while camping on the south, is that Platte? A Pawnee Indian came into the camp with what the army surgeon pronounced to be a giant thigh bone of a human being. When Cody asked about where such a bone might have come from, the Indian replied that long ago a race of giants had lived in the area. This race of men had been 3 times larger than normal men and able to outrun a buffalo and even carry it in one hand, Cody wrote. So here's my point. Evidence of these hybrid beings has been suppressed, has been hidden, been ignored, been overlooked. It's even been contributed to aliens. When people look at the things that I just shown you, and I just showed you a fraction of the things that are out there because I didn't want to take up our whole time today looking at them, but there are dozens upon dozens, hundreds, thousands of these images of things that nobody knows how to explain. So they either suppress them, hide them, ignore them, overlook them, or they say aliens must have done it. I don't think we have to, but the evidence that there were hybrid beings here in the earth, I don't think we have to try to imagine where they came from when the Bible tells us about a hybrid race of beings that were in the earth. That should explain where all of these things came from. So I think the evidence that they were here is clear. Now let's talk about the evidence that their spirits are in the earth, as Enoch told us they were. Go to 2 Chronicles 11. This is where the kingdom splits, and you've got Rehoboam maintaining control of the southern tribes of Judah, and Jeroboam taking the 10 tribes, forming what would become Israel. And here's what we're told about Jeroboam. 2 Chronicles 11:15. And he ordained him priest for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made. He ordained him priest for the devils. Now the Hebrew word here is actually seir, and it refers to a shaggy he-goat. You're talking about a being that's hybrid. Now we're talking about 2 Chronicles 11. I'm going to get his picture off there. 2 Chronicles 11, we're actually talking about the spirit of that being. And that spirit of that being was alive in 2 Chronicles 11. And the spirit of that being is still alive today, as we can easily see in that image being pushed hard in America to this very day. Deuteronomy 32:17. And they sacrificed unto devils, not to Yahweh, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came up newly up, whom your fathers feared not. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. They thought they was worshiping Yahweh, but the things that they had chosen to represent Yahweh did not really represent Yahweh at all. Things they chose represented devils. Go to Luke chapter 9. Luke 9, look in verse 1. Then Yahshua called his 12 disciples together, and he gave them power and authority over all devils and to cure diseases. And he sent them to preach the kingdom of Yahweh and to heal the sick. The word translated devils there is daemonion. We've talked about it before. Daemonion refers to a supernatural spirit, a lesser deity. These are the spirits of the hybrids who were considered by the Greeks to be gods. Thus, they came up with the word daemonion. We sometimes transliterate it to demon. But to them, a daemonion was a deity, a lesser god, a supernatural spirit. So here's what we know. We know the hybrids were here. We read of their genesis in the book of Genesis. We know what happened to their spirits when they died. They were forbidden to leave the earth. We know that these spirits of these hybrids are called evil spirits by Yahweh through the book of Enoch, but we know that the Greeks and other civilizations call them the spirits of their gods. Notice that Yahshua sent out the 12, and when he did, he gave them authority over these evil spirits. Never do we read of any man having authority over these evil spirits or of even knowing how to deal with them at all until Yahshua. These evil spirits oppressed, attacked, and destroyed just like Enoch said they would, and man had no idea how to combat them until Yahshua. He gave his disciples authority over them. Drop down to verse 6 of Luke 9. And they departed and went through the towns, preaching the gospel and healing everywhere. And others, it says, took notice of this thing that had never been done before. So drop down. They went through the towns, preaching the gospel, healing everywhere, doing what Yahshua told them to do. He gave them authority over these evil spirits. Now notice what happened as they went through the towns doing this. Look in verse 49. And John answered and said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in your name, and we forbade him because he followed not with us. And Yahshua said unto him, Forbid him not, for he that is not against us is for us. Until it was discovered that standing in the authority of Yahshua, in his stead, in his name, that you could command these evil spirits and cast them out. It had never been done before, but once the 12 went out doing it, others saw them doing it, and they decided to do it too and found out they could do it. But they had to do it in Yeshua's name. Look in Luke 10, verse 1. After these things, Yahshua appointed other 70 also, and he sent them 2 and 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself would come. What did he send them to do? Well, let's let them tell us what they did. Drop down to verse 17. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Master, even the devils are subject unto us through your name. What are they referring to? They're referring to these evil spirits that no man had ever known what to do with or how to deal with. They said, even these evil spirits are subject unto us. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. To follow, we see in Luke 9, we see in Luke 10, to follow Yahshua means that it is intended that we learn from him how to stand against his rival or rivals. We learn from him how to combat these evil spirits in his name. These men were amazed. They said, even the devils are subject to us, even the evil spirits. The implication by their wording is, until you, we never knew how to deal with them. Until you, we never knew how to combat them. Until you, we knew how to deal with certain things. We knew how to pray for healing and those kind of things. But until you, we did not know how to deal with these evil spirits, right? We knew they were there, but we didn't know how to deal with them. And now we have discovered even they are subject to us through your name. And that hour, Yahshua rejoiced in spirit. Look that word up. It means to jump for joy. He didn't just say, well, whoopee. It means he jumped for joy. It means he let out a shout when they came back saying, the spirits are subject to us. He was exuberant and he began to give thanks to Yahweh. He said, I thank you, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hid these things from the wise and prudent. You've revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in your sight. All things are delivered to me of my Father, and no man knows who the Son is but the Father, and who the Father is but the Son, and he to whom the Son will reveal him. And he turned him unto his disciples and said privately, blessed are the eyes which see the things that you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them. And he's not just talking about the fact that he as Messiah has come. He's talking about that many have desired to see this authority being given to man, where he has authority over evil spirits. Blessed are your eyes, he said, for you see. Many would have liked to have known what you know, but they did not know. We need to learn from Yahshua so that we too can stand against these entities that are still at work in the earth. But we have to keep everything in its proper place. Did you notice verse 20 there? Look at verse 20. Notwithstanding in this rejoice not. Now he just rejoiced, but he said, whoa, wait, let's come back. In this rejoice not that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. If we get more excited over the fact that Yahweh can use us than we do over the fact that Yahweh delivered us, our priorities are out of whack. If we get more excited over the fact that Yahweh can and will empower us than we do over the fact that Yahweh can and did write our names in the book of life, our thinking needs to be adjusted. It's awesome that he gives us authority and can and will use us. But what's more awesome is that he wrote our names in the book of life. And Yahshua wants us to keep that in perspective. Now, all through the Gospels, we're told about the ministry of Yahshua. All through the Gospels. But if you don't understand Genesis chapter 6, you don't understand what Yahshua was truly doing. We're told in the Gospels, he cast 7 evil spirits out of Mary Magdalene.
Right.
That means nothing to you unless you know Genesis 6. Evil spirits, what kind of evil spirits? Who are these evil spirits? They're the evil spirits of hybrid beings that were born as a result of Genesis 6, who, though they died, their spirits still live on. He cast 1,000 evil spirits out of the man of Gadara. Matthew 4:24 says that the people of Syria brought him many who were possessed of devils, and he healed them. At Peter's home, we read this in Matthew 8. When the evening was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils. And he cast out the spirits with his word, and he healed all that were sick. Apart from Genesis 6, you don't understand what he's doing, but he's doing war against the evil spirits that came into being as a result of Genesis 6. Matthew tells us in Matthew 10 that when Messiah sent them out, he we read it in Luke 9 and Luke 10, but Matthew said when he sent us out, he specifically said to us before we left, cast out devils. That's what he sent them to do. Mark 1:39, and Yahshua preached in their synagogues throughout all Galilee, and he cast out devils. Mark 16, he said unto them, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believes and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believes not shall be damned. And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils, and they shall speak with new tongues. He still expects us to see the rival of the kingdom of heaven as our rival and learn how to deal with them. When there was the threat from Herod to kill Yahshua, I want you to listen carefully to what he said. In Luke 13, the same day, Luke 13:31, the same day there came certain of the Pharisees saying unto him, get thee out and depart hence, for Herod will kill you. Here's what Yahshua said. And he said unto them, go ye and you tell that fox, behold, I cast out devils. Of the things that he's going to tell Herod that he does, the first thing that he mentioned is, I cast out devils. When he sent the 12, he gave them power and authority to cast out devils. When he sent out the 70, the thing they were most amazed by is that the devils were subject to them. It's a part of Yahshua and who he is and what he does. The battle from the beginning has been with the spirits of these hybrids who came into the earth for the purpose of destroying mankind. I want us to read a parable together as we bring this to a close. Go to Matthew 13. Apart from Genesis 6, I'm not sure we understood the parable. We spent a lot of time studying the parable, but I'm not sure we understood it apart from Genesis 6. Matthew 13, verse 24. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, did not you sow good seed in your field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy has done this. The servant said unto him, Will you then that we go and gather them up? He said, Nah. Lest while you gather up the tares, you root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. The tares, number one, what's the word I'm looking for? Characteristic. The number one characteristic of a tare is it looks like wheat. That's the reason it can grow among them and not be detected except by an expert eye. Its number one characteristic is it looks like wheat. Now that's a clue for us in this parable that Messiah tells. The evil spirits of the hybrids working in the earth today are able to work without observation. Remember what Enoch said? They will oppress, they will attack, they will destroy without observation. Messiah calls these spirits of he likens the spirits of these hybrid beings to tares. You cannot tell who they are just by looking at them. He told it to us in a lot of different ways. Here he refers to the spirits of these hybrid beings working in the earth. He refers to them being like a tare. It's not wheat, but it looks like wheat. In another place, he likened them to wolves in sheep's clothing. Are you with me? The number one characteristic that these evil spirits take on is the ability to blend in and to look like something that it's not. They wear sheep's clothing. They profess to be ministers of light, but they are not. And these evil spirits are at work deceiving the hearts of men and taking them into rebellion against Yahweh and into eternal damnation. Listen to this warning Paul gave Timothy. Now the Spirit speaks expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. These devils, these evil spirits, are at work controlling their ministers who deceive the masses with their doctrines and seduce them away from the truth of the gospel. 1 Corinthians 10:20 says this, "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God," not to Yahweh. "I would not that you should have fellowship with devils." Many people in ignorance think they're worshiping Yahweh, but by the things they're bringing into their faith and into their worship, they do not realize they've been deceived and led astray into the very worship of these demon spirits, these evil spirits of these hybrids that are lesser gods who want the worship of Yahweh. Did that make sense? These evil spirits harass, deceive, and attack. And for the most part, we haven't known who they were, where they came from, and what they were doing, or what we could or should do about them. The kingdom of heaven takes this rivalry very seriously, and so must we. We're going to close with Ephesians 6:10 again. That's where we closed last week, but I want us to go there again. I feel like I've kind of hurried through this, but I want to make sure that we get this. Genesis 6 tells us about the genesis of a hybrid race of beings. It was created by angels from heaven and daughters of men. It was not sanctioned by Yahweh. It was rebellion against Yahweh. So when these hybrid beings came into existence, it is for the very purpose, Satan's very purpose, of extinguishing Yahweh's seed in the earth so that he can take ownership of it. He contaminated that DNA for a purpose. The flood came to deal with it because the problem got so serious. But Yahweh preserved his seed. These hybrid beings were killed off before the flood, and they're killed off after the flood. But their spirits have nowhere to go. Yahweh will not allow them into his heaven. These spirits have nowhere to go, and so they roam the earth, hungry and thirsty, and seeking whom they may possess or oppress. They oppress and afflict people, but they prefer to possess and work in cooperation with people. Listen to me there. They prefer to cooperate with and possess people. They prefer to work in the hearts and minds of men and get them to believe that when they disobey Yahweh, they're doing the right thing. And that's the reason that you have ministers. And the Bible calls them the ministers of Satan. It's a shame that people in the world have been so deceived, they think they're the ministers of Yahweh and that they're preaching for the Messiah. But the Bible calls them the ministers of Satan himself, who transformed himself into an angel of light. And these ministers of Satan work in the earth, deceiving people to believe the holiest thing they can ever do is call the law oppression and bondage and reject it. That's evidence of these evil spirits at work in the earth. Paul told Timothy, seducing spirits, deceiving spirits, leading men away from the truth of Torah.
That's right.
What we have to realize, I think today is where I'm wanting to go. What we have to realize is that, number one, if we're going to follow Yahshua, it means walking in Torah, yes. But if we're going to follow Yahshua, it means learning from Him how to deal with these hybrid being spirits that are at work in our day and time that we have been oblivious to. And have shown no interest in learning about how to deal with them. If they leave us alone, we'll leave them alone. It's kind of been our attitude. Right? Yeah. But when Yahshua sent the 12 out, He didn't say, go preach a nice little gospel and take up an offering, bring it back, and let's put it in here and see how much we got this week. When He sent the 70 out, He didn't say, hey, go set up some campaigns for me. We'll go in there and preach a nice feel-good gospel, take up a collection, and we'll see how we can divide that up among us when it's all said and done. When He sent them out, He said, go cast out devils. And we'd rather not talk about it. But how can we say we follow Him if we're not willing to learn from Him how to fight with Him? Ephesians 6 tells us the first things we have to do in this rivalry, so let's read it. Finally, my brethren, be strong in Yahweh and in the power of His might. I'm in verse 10, verse 11 now. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. He's describing for us these evil spirits that are at work. Verse 13, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of Yahweh that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness. So the first thing we have to do is gird our loins. Any warrior, any athlete will tell you that their power and their strength comes from their loins. They're not just made for running. It's where your power, your strength comes from. To hit a baseball, your strength comes from your loins. In battle or in game, your strength comes from your loins. Here it says, our strength, our power to stand against these evil spirits is what? Our loins, what are we girded them with? So our power and our strength to stand against these evil spirits is truth. If you don't have truth, you're whipped.
Right.
If intertwined in the faith that you say you have are lies, you lose. Do I need to explain? December the 25th is a lie.
Right.
Yes.
Santa is a lie. Sunday morning resurrection is a lie. Good Friday is a lie. Easter bunny, Easter eggs, wreath, Yule logs, mistletoe, all of those things, decorated cedar trees, all of those things come forth from lies that were part of the lives of those evil hybrid beings. And if you embrace those and bring them in and weave them into your faith, you lose. You cannot embrace lies and walk in truth. If your faith is contaminated with lies, if much of your worship and celebration involve those lies, you have been overcome by evil spirits. So he said, have your loins girded about with truth. Have on the breastplate of righteousness. Put on the breastplate of righteousness. What is righteousness? Our protection against the spirits of these hybrid beings, our protection against them is to walk in righteousness. What is righteousness?
Sticking to your truth, being disciplined in Torah.
Yeah, just break it down. Righteousness is rightness. That's how simple it is. It's rightness. Well, what is right? Well, right is living according to truth. What is truth? David just told us. Truth is Torah. Your law, your word is truth. Our victory over these evil spirits is found in Torah. Our power, our strength comes from the truth that's written there. Our ability to move forward in life comes from our ability to know what it says and to walk in it, to walk in rightness. Verse 15, your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. This has always been interpreted to say that you need to be out preaching the gospel to other people. That's not what it says. I like to work out. I do. I enjoy it. But the same applies whether I'm working in a garden or hunting or whatever it is we do. If you're going to do a particular activity, working out, I don't work out in my dress shoes. When I go to work out, I bind a special shoe around my feet for that activity. Likewise, what it's saying to us here is, in our day-to-day lives, we're to make sure that we move about knowing that we know that we are at peace with Yahweh. The good news of peace. See, the Bible tells us the carnal mind is at enmity with Yahweh. What does that mean? The carnal mind opposes Him in everything He says. And therefore it says the carnal mind is not subject to the law of Yahweh, neither indeed can it be. It wars with Him. So what we do if we're going to move through life in a victorious way over evil spirits is we have to make sure that we know that we're at peace with Yahweh, and the way we walk at peace with Yahweh is in obedience. Right. We make ourselves subject to His law. Our protection, our victory comes from and through walking in obedience. Verse 16, above all, everybody say above all.
Above all.
Taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. Now above all, let me tell you, if you were brought up in, at least if you were spent any time in a Word of Faith church, you were taught wrong what that means. We were taught that the most important part of our weaponry is faith. Above everything else you're going to take, make sure you have faith. That's not what it says. That was the most important thing, it would have mentioned it first. Most important thing is that you gird your loins up with truth. The second most important thing is that having girded yourself with truth, you walk in that truth and righteousness. Are you with me? And that you stay at peace with Yahweh through obedience. So when it says above all, we have truth, we have righteousness, we are at peace. When it says above all, that Greek word translated above there is just the Greek word epi, E-P-I, and epi means upon. So, I have truth, I have righteousness, I have peace. Upon these, I take the shield of faith. Or excuse me, I take the shield of faith. It's not making faith more important than those. It's just upon these, I'm taking the shield of faith. You know what that means? Here's what it means as I understand it. Just because you walk in truth, and just because you walk in righteousness, and just because you're at peace with Yahweh, do not think that means you're never going to be attacked. Yes, gird yourself with truth. Yes, walk in righteousness. Yes, know that you're at peace with Yahweh. But take with it the shield of faith so that you can quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. Because do not think just because you have those things on, you're not going to be attacked. You will be. Yeah. Quench his fiery darts through faith. Refuse to surrender. Refuse to give in. Keep moving forward. Verse 17, and take the helmet of salvation. I like that one. And the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Yahweh. Put on your salvation, wearing it like a helmet. You ever thought about that? Put your salvation on like a helmet. Strap that thing on and wear it. How many of you watch football? Some pretty vicious hits take place in football, don't they? You know why a lot of those vicious hits take place? Because men know they got their head protected with that helmet. You take that helmet off of them, they're not near as aggressive as they are with that helmet on. Listen to what the Scripture says. And take the helmet of salvation. Wear your salvation like a helmet. Let it make you bold. Let your salvation make you aggressive. See, Paul knew what it was to wear that helmet of salvation. He said, because he was attacked on every side. Am I right? Yes. Shipwreck and starvation and snake bites. He's attacked on every side. Everywhere he went, people trying to stone him and to kill him and put him in prison and to beat him. He put on that helmet of salvation, strapped that thing on, planted his feet and said, for me to live is Yahshua. To die? Well, that's just gain. You got a man like that, you can't stop him. See, he's got that helmet of salvation on. He's not worried about what you can do to him. And Peter wore it. Peter said this. They said, man, you either quit preaching in Yeshua's name or we're going to cut your head off. He said, well, we ought to obey Yahweh rather than men. And knowing that the next day they were planning on chopping his head off, do you know what he did that night? Well, he took a nap. He got on that helmet of salvation. He's not worried about what man can do to him. And the 3 Hebrew children wore that helmet of salvation, didn't they? And Nebuchadnezzar said, you boys better bow down. I'm going to throw you in that furnace. They said, well, our Elohim is able and he will deliver us out of your hand. But if not, be it known unto you, O king, we're not bowing. They got on a helmet that you can't brow. Yeshua said to us, never fear he who can kill the body, but he's not able to kill the soul. But fear him who can destroy body and soul.
Right.
That's what he's telling. Put on that helmet of salvation. Somebody says, we're going to kill your body. So, that's all you can do. Beyond that, you've got no power, so I'm not worried about it. My name's written in the book of life.
Right.
And that's where I'm going to rejoice. And remember what we read earlier? Yahshua said, do not rejoice that evil spirits are subject to you. If you're going to rejoice, rejoice over this. Your name is written in the book of life. And then it says this, the word is your sword. You defend yourself and you take ground and you protect others by and through the word. And then verse 18 says this, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. In other words, Ephesians 6 just said this to us, the battle is real. Buckle up, Buttercup. But then it closed by saying this to us in verse 18. Be bold. Be courageous. But don't you dare be arrogant. Pray always. Listen to Yahshua again. I'm going to read this. In Luke 10, he sent the 70 out. He said, the harvest is great. The laborers are few. Listen to what he said to them before they left. In Luke 10:3, he said this to them. Go your way. Behold, I'm sending you forth as lambs among wolves. He didn't sugarcoat it. The battle is real. We're to have confidence, not arrogance, as we set ourselves to go to war. But the message is, we have to be willing to go to war.
Yes.
We have to be willing to somehow process this information. That Genesis 6 told us that tares were sown in the earth. And the spirit of those tares are at work trying to look like wheat, but they're not wheat. Trying to deceive mankind and lead him into damnation. Trying to oppress and attack everybody who tries to expose them. We have to somehow process that these evil spirits are real. And to follow Yahshua means that we learn how to fight them.
Yes.
Are you willing to do that? Do you want to know how to do that? Glory, glory, hallelujah. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. As His name is put upon you, so shall He bless you. Hallelujah. You're dismissed.